Syria had only one land crossing during the war, and that was to Lebanon. Things are now changing for both countries. For the first time in years, Lebanese produce will be able to reach far-off markets in the Gulf, thanks to the reopening of the Nassib border crossing between Syria and Jordan. Syria is trying to re-establish its role as a regional transit hub.
Syria wants to end the siege imposed on it. What we are seeing is the beginning of the end of its isolation in the Arab world. There is a recognition that Bashar al-Assad is staying in power.
The resumption of trade between Jordan and Syria doesn't just improve the economies of both countries. It is a step towards normalizing relations after years of tension. UN peacekeepers have also returned to patrol the demilitarized zone with the Israeli-occupied Syrian Golan Heights. And Syria and Iraq are planning to reopen their borders following the defeat of ISIL in the region. Government leaders in Baghdad who didn't break ties with Damascus say Syria shouldn't be marginalized and it must return to the Arab fold.
Syria is not an intruder in the Arab League. Syria should not be marginalized, and nobody can marginalize it.
But many Arab states remain hostile to President Bashar al-Assad and the government. Arab leaders may have withdrawn much of their support to the rebellion, but are weary of Iran's influence.
I think for the Arab states that were involved in the conflict, it's now not a matter of whether Bashar al-Assad will stay in power or not, but rather on how much interest they can have in any future Syria.
The Syrian leadership is celebrating the reopening of borders as a sign of victory in the war, as well as stability. But that narrative doesn't reflect the whole reality.
Russia says the international community is no longer focusing on making Syrian President Bashar al-Assad leave power. But the West is demanding what it calls a credible UN-led peace process that will lead to free elections. And until that happens, it is withholding much-needed money for reconstruction.
The United States is even threatening what it calls a strategy of isolation if Syria doesn't cooperate on a settlement of the war. The reopening of borders is a step towards ending Syria's economic isolation, but a longer road lies ahead to regaining international legitimacy. Zeina, Khodr, Al Jazeera, Eastern Lebanon.